We are right now at the Red Bull Ring in a GT4 car. This video is going to be a little bit different than the rest of them. Normally I try and record these guys live, but unfortunately I do not have the skills to try and get this car into the 136s and talk at the same time while maintaining coherent thoughts. Unfortunately I never did successfully make it into the 36s, but I did get into the 137.078, so it was a world record lap in fact. And in this video I'm just going to kind of talk you guys through it and talk out some of the things I feel like I did right and also point out the things I feel like I did wrong. So let's back this up and start from the beginning. I'm going to run the force lap in a cockpit view so you can see the inputs. Should be one of these guys. There we go. So we got a good run coming down the front straight. This actually wasn't a particularly difficult corner, so I was pretty consistent with this. I'm actually going to run this lap all the way through. This was a really tricky corner to get right. Cost me a lot of restarts. This straight, after turn 1 being so long, it was so crucial to get that turn 1 right that any sort of mistake would cost me a quarter of a second. This is another tricky corner. Almost made me wish I had traction control turned on, because it was just slow enough for me to bog in second gear, but also just fast enough that when you're exiting it, second gear would light up the rear tires and you'd have uncontrollable wheel spin and start sliding across to the inside of the track. Finding a braking point for this corner was also a bit challenging, but it wasn't just a braking point, it was actually the on throttle point was very difficult to find, because I think there's a bump in the middle of that corner that if you hit it just right, you would miss that bump and you could get to the throttle really quickly. But if you did hit that bump, it would kind of cause the car to push wide and lift the front end up, and you'd waste a bunch of time. This combo that went in right now really didn't give me too much trouble, as long as I remembered I had to just be patient and be clipping the apexes late and backsiding that corner. This corner I didn't get right until probably the last 4 laps. And this one was actually pretty easy and fun. You just throw the car at it, third gear, floor it on the way out, and ride it out. So now I'm going to try and analyze this a little bit closer. Okay. Turn 1, like I said, definitely the most challenging corner on this track, as it's so important. So, actually I just went by it. Here we are. Coming into turn 1, I found that this orange little wall cap was the perfect brake marker. So as long as I was on the brakes when I passed that orange brake marker, I knew I was going to be, give or take a few feet, on the brakes at the right spot. But the tricky part was finding the turn-in point. I never really did get a good marker for this, so I was kind of guessing every time. On this particular lap, actually I didn't do it as well as I had done about 5 or 6 laps ago, because I almost had pulled a full car length on this. That was my previous fastest time, but I had almost pulled a full car length on my Ghost on that run, so I know there's a lot of time left in turn 1. So once you get it pointed in at this corner, there's a little yellow curbing on the inside. I was pretty much aiming for that and letting the understeer kind of push me wide. And another thing that was very important is I had to be on the gas long before I made it to that apex. Otherwise, there was no way I was going to have any time coming down that long straight. At the apex, I'm about 50% throttle, and at this point it's just holding the throttle. Don't quite go full throttle yet, because it's tempting just to mat it right here because you think you can make it, but there's a little bump right there that we just crossed, upsets the car, so you couldn't go full throttle. You always had to be holding a little bit back. And then you have this yellow curb on the outside, which I'm pretty sure they put there just to spin you into the inside wall. When you hit that, you actually lose a bit of time, and I ended up hitting this on my fastest run. On that run I mentioned that was about 6 laps ago, I just rode along the edge of it, and it was significantly faster. Just this little bit of wheel hop was enough to cost me. So, skipping ahead a bit. Coming into here, I was using this brake sign up here, the 100-meter mark I believe, and that was my brake point again, very nicely placed. Made finding the braking zones easy, but again turn-in was a bit vague. I wish I braked a little bit later on this lap because I actually ended up turning in just a bit too early and I couldn't carry the speed that I wanted to. So what happens is, since I was turning in just a little bit too early and apexing this just a little earlier than I had been the previous laps, you'll see I make a little correction right there that again cost me time, and also I got a little bit of wheel spin on exit. All these little mistakes added up. Now coming into the next corner, this was probably the most costly mistake on this lap. I was braking pretty much just when this 100-meter sign was about to go under this visor was when I was hitting the brakes. And again, pretty easy braking zone, but trying to find where to get on the throttle was very difficult because, like I said, somewhere around here there is a bump. And if you hit that bump, it pushes you wide right into the sand trap if you hit the gas too soon. But if you get nice and tight on this apex and have the car lined up for a clean exit, you'll miss that bump entirely and you can get to the throttle much sooner. The downside is it was probably a 50-50 shot whether or not I'd hit that bump because I could never quite figure out exactly where it was on track or how I had the car angled when I hit it. So in this case, I actually should have been full throttle way back. Oh, jumped back too far. Now I've messed this up. There we go. I should have been full throttle right here. I should have had the throttle completely matted, foot to the floor. Since I'm in third gear, it's actually going to bog a bit. So by the time it stops bogging, it would have taken me right to the edge of the track and I would have had a really nice exit. But unfortunately that didn't happen, so I was feathering the throttle, thinking I'm going to hit that bump that upsets the car, and then I never hit it. This corner here, like I said, wasn't actually difficult. You just had to remember to make sure you were late apexing these corners. They're very long, so it's kind of easy to want to start early apexing them, so you had to really be patient. Also, under braking, especially coming into this corner, the car got really light in the rear and it wanted to come around on you. This is something I actually tried to tweak with my setup, but I never could really make the car want to have a great turn in here and great exit, and at the same time be able to take turn 1 quickly. I don't know why, but turn 1, I could kind of tune the car to take turn 1 fast, or I could tune the car to take these corners fast. But no matter what I did, I couldn't get a tune that was happy with both of them, and I ended up pretty much running the default setup with just a few adjustments made to it. I'll have a link to the tune in the description below. And again, around here, it was just lightly tap the brakes, get the nose set, wait a bit, and I actually just got the inside curbing maybe a little bit sooner than I wanted to, but I actually had enough speed coming in, and enough runoff coming out, I was alright. Still, a little bit of time could have been made, and probably could have gotten into the 136s if I had gotten that section right. Now this corner was a little bit trickier to find the brake point because it was somewhere between the 100 and the 50-meter marker. So I was just kind of guessing every lap. I got it really right on this lap, and this was probably about as well as I'd ever done it. Because another case of get the car turned in and make sure you're on the throttle long before the apex. In this case, I was really nice and early on the throttle, so I got a great run going into the final corner. Also, it's important to use up all the track on the exit, because this corner right here was surprisingly quick, but it also really wanted to pull you in, so I found myself multiple times out-braking myself. I had to force myself to remember, brake early, get the car set up, because it's another case of you want to be on the throttle soon and get that awesome exit. I almost screwed up right here actually because I figured I was going to push wide, but thankfully the car hooked. And across the line. I'm going to back this up again, switch to chase cam, and just kind of talk about car positioning a little bit more before we finish this up. Now coming into turn 1, I'm all the way over on the rumble strips, again trying to open up the radius of this corner as much as I can, and I was pretty much as close as I could get to this yellow curbing, and actually if you'll notice this curb right here has a little rise on the inside, and if you caught just a bit too much of that you would kind of get the suspension undulating and you couldn't get to the throttle quickly enough for the exit, which again ever so crucial. So that's about as tight as I wanted to go. On exit I kind of wish I didn't use all of the exit. The fastest line was stopping just before this yellow banana curb. because when you hit that banana curb, your car would start bouncing, you could hear the rear tires kind of skipping a bit, and that's all costing you time. This straight, really, nothing to write home about. It's just keep the throttle pinned and hit the gear shifts. Here again, I wasn't as far on the carbs as I could have been, but I felt when I was really heavy on the carbs, the ABS would kick in and my braking distance would be sacrificed because the ABS would be pulsating the brakes over the curbing. Now, I could have fixed this by running ABS off, but I'm not good enough to do that, so I just sacrificed my line a little bit for better braking. Now, again, like I mentioned, to do this corner right, you actually want to be probably a meter in front of where this car is turning in. I was probably a meter early on turning. Because if you're a little bit later, you can go full throttle from actually back here and just drive it off this corner and get a great run into that corner that's coming up. Unfortunately, I didn't have that and had wheel spin coming out. It was really a fine balance between bogging second gear and just roasting the tires. And as I mentioned before, I should have been on the throttle just a bit sooner here, and that would have carried me out to the edge of the track, which would have been faster. Now these corners were a little bit difficult to find the apex on, because if you actually hit the curbing, your car would be done because it would just upset the car and you'd be sliding all over the place. I did manage just to brush the curbing, but not as close as I wanted to get. Of course, on exit, I was using up all the curbs. Now, in this corner, it was pretty much take as much curb as you wanted. You actually kind of use the curbs to help rotate the car. And same thing here. You're using the curbing to help kind of pull the car around. On exit, they're a bit slick, so you have to remember that. But overall, it was pretty manageable. Like I said, that was a really fun corner. So that was the lap. I kind of wish I got into the 1 minute 36s. It would have been kind of nice. 1 minute 36.9 would have been great. But unfortunately that didn't happen, and I don't think I can get much more out of this car without a lot more practice. But thanks for watching. I hope this helps someone who is maybe trying to do a quick lap here in this car and track combo, or maybe a different car. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day.